Let's talk a bit about Eagle Rock, the 50th
Yeah,
anniversary coming up, but the actual term itself dates back to 1913, doesn't it? When it was first used in
maybe
song.
earlier. It's definitely pops up in a few songs. So
Mhm.
if it's popping up in popular songs, then it's probably been around for even longer than that, because people are doing the Eagle Rock. The Eagle Rock is like, I think it was it was a dance, but it was also like rock and roll. It's a euphemism for you know what.
Rooting.
Spread eagling. Do the Eagle
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah, I think the song that I've tracked it back to is 1913, "Balling the Jack," where the line
Yeah,
was
Blowing the
"Stretch your
Jack.
loving arms straight out in space, then do the Eagle Rock with style and grace," which I think was also used in the Beaches movie.
Time I remember that song when I was a kid, so that song had stay power. Ball on the jack. That's all I remember. Yeah.
So, was your use of the term a direct reference to that song?
No, no. What happened was I've told this story a few times. I was over in London working with Procession, a band there that had asked me to come over and be a front man for them, and they there. So we were living in this beautiful mansion down in Surrey, huge place, and I used to get the Sunday Times, and they had a lift out, and it was we're going to start having the dictionary of music. So the first week was like A to E or something. So you get through A, and then you come to B, and in B is blues, right? So there's a blues started in the south when people were picking cotton and all that rubbish. And then it goes on and it had a picture of some people kind of juke joint. It said they were cutting the pigeon wing and doing the eagle rock. And I was mucking around with that riff and, which was kind of like pre-war, early 30s kind of Mississippi kind of groove, ragtimey, and I thought, I'll call this song Eagle Rock, and we'll do the Eagle Rock. And it all took off from there.
So, let me get this right. Then. So the song was written in London before Daddy Cool
Half
formed.
of
So,
it was.
so it wasn't written for Daddy Cool.
No, Daddy Cool hadn't started, and I didn't finish it until I got back to Australia. It took me a while to get back. We took about 3 months to hitchhike home, and various forms of transport, and finally landed in Darwin, where I managed to get my hands on a guitar and was messing around with it a bit more. And then I got back to Melbourne, and I thought this song needs something else, a chorus, and that's when I came up with "Hey, hey, hey, good old Eagle Rock." What's the next chord? Oh, G. I just put all the chords I knew. A, G, B minor, D. The B minor is like the most interesting part, and the G. So that sort of made it into a proper song. And then the very first band that ever played it was Sons of Vegetal Mother, which begat Daddy Cool.
Was there ever a recorded
Yeah.
version of Sons of Vegetal Mother doing it?
No, but there's an interesting. I found like a Ronioed sheet that we were handing out of some of the lyrics of Sons of Vegetal Mother at TF Much Ballroom, so they know what the hell we were singing about, and uh, and it's got so slightly different lyrics. It's kind of interesting because Eagle Rock influenced the writing of Crocodile Rock, and some of the words I chucked out, like we'll rock and we'll bop and we'll do the Eagle Rock. In that, there you go, we're rocking and bopping and doing the Crocodile Rock. So the ones that I thought were a bit trite, they actually used, not because I told them to, but just because it was pretty obvious.
Wow. So the song itself, the opening two words, "Now listen." When did that
Yeah.
happen?
I don't know. I think it just came sort of as you write. Songwriting's a funny business. It's sort of organic, and you don't know where things come from. But you've got a central idea, and that whole thing of now listen, we're stepping out, going to turn you around once, and we'll do the Eagle Rock. And the funny thing was, I sort of used a similar structure on Bomb Bomb, which is the flip side. Bomb Bomb, baby, don't you know I love you so? Baby, don't you know I love you so? Like I repeat these little bits from within the thing. And so that's kind of visual. I was kind of going down that track where you kind of just like turn things around and repeat them a little bit to get the message across. But in hindsight, now listen, it was great because everyone's going like, oh, okay, You know, it's a good little thing to get people's attention.
What about the guitar right at the very start? Because that is one of the most identifiable parts of any song.
Yeah.
Like, you only have to hear the first 2 seconds of that song, you know it's Eagle Rock. Did that come?
Well,
How'd that come about?
that was the first thing I came up with, was playing that riff. I've actually got a guitar here, and if anyone wants to know how to play Eagle Rock, you just get an A chord and you get like that, and you go. You got to keep the bottom going. So that's the first thing I came up with. I mean, I wasn't as polished as that when I first did it, and I had to practice a while. And the whole thing was I was trying to get my finger picking thing going better. But the big clue to it is to do that, and everything else bounces around that. So it's got funkiness to it, you know. It's got like counter rhythms going on there, and that gives it that bounce. And then it repeats again, you know, repeats and it repeats. And Daddy Cool was a great band, and we were just absolutely able to like stay on form and not speed up and just grind those riffs away. And Hannah's going in the background, and I'm going, you know, Wayne's going or something like that, wherever it is. Yeah. And it was just, you know, without those guys, that song would not sound as good as it does, you know. So I give everybody full credit there, you know, for making the song that I wrote sound really great, because I've heard lots of other people play it. Does not sound any good, you know. They miss a few things. They even with my band, the Peacenik, sometimes I have to say, this is the one song I don't want you to mess with, you know. I want to play it exactly like the record. And because the record is perfect, you know, so let's do it. It's like a Zen exercise. You got to get it right, you know.
So the song was sort of in its formula components when you brought it to the band. What was the reaction of the guys in the band as you presented it to them?
Well, like I said, Sons of Vegetal Mother were the first guys. I'd already played it to Ross Hannaford's. He had a little band. When I came back from England, I was running around, saw all my old friends, and was trying to get songs to them, you know. And I got Make Your Stash to Mike Rudd, who'd been in the Party Machine, had started Spectrum. So he took that and did it on their first album. And I took Eagle Rock around to Hannaford. He had a band called Quinn, which was a country rock band with a couple of other guys I knew. I took around to one of their rehearsals and just said, try this out, guys. And so they're trying it out. And I left, and, you know, Hannah told me, they said, nah, we don't want to do that. So they were first, I got turned down by them. But, you know, when we'd played it in Sons of Vegetal Mother, which was a much bigger lineup than Daddy Cool, went from like 8 or 9 or sometimes 12 members, you know, depending on who was around. But Daddy Cool, once we got the 4-piece together in my back room in this house I was renting in South Yarra, and we just went 4-piece on it, and was like sounding, oh wow, this is great, you know. So guys came around from the agency. A guy became our manager, Peter Andrew, and with Jerry Humphreys, who was you know, from the Loved Ones, he was like emceeing things and that. And they came around, and they were like they were playing all this stuff, you know, in my back room, and they're going, wow, that's great, you got to play it at the TF Much Ballroom. So that's how we got our first gigs, you know.
Was that when you started to realise that the song was going to have longevity, that it could potentially become a classic?
Well, yeah, because we would play it. Daddy Cool did our first gigs in Melbourne like very late October 1970 at the TF Much Ballroom, and which was a cathedral hall, which is now called Catholic Hall. It's owned by the Catholic Church in Brunswick Street. It's still the same. It's a beautiful old hall. And we came on, and immediately everybody just got up off the floor. They've been listening to like prog rock bands and stuff, you know, and watching weird performances by crazy people. And they just all started jumping around the room, you know. They all got up and started dancing. So it was like, that was it from that moment on. Whenever we played around Melbourne, we played all the clubs, we played dances, we played schools. We got the same reaction everywhere, you know. And before you knew it, about 3-4 months after we'd formed, we were like headlining at the town hall, Melbourne Town Hall. We didn't even have a record out, and the place was packed out. people were conga lining out into Swanston Street and back. You know, it was really crazy times. And then we got spotted by the Sparmac guys and Robbie Porter, and they said, we want to record you. And we're going, well, what's in it for us? He said, well, we're going to take it to America and mix it down. I said, I'm in, because all my influences are like, I'd already been in England, and everybody in England was trying to get to America. So I was like, okay, we'll just shortcut that route, you know. So that's what happened. And we eventually we did the album. And just to answer your question, the song was always at the top of the list of like what we're going to do. So we really kind of concentrated on that song as being the first single. We only took about 4 takes to get it, you know. And then the whole album was done in like 2.5 days or something. And then Porter took it to the States and got this really good guy called John Golden to mix it. And that's why it sounds different to all our other albums and records that were coming out of Melbourne at the time. You know, singles tended to be kind of drenched in reverb and, you know, overproduced. And this was very much just the sound of the band, you know, with full spectrum stereos, a guitar over there, there's a guitar over there. And they were kind of all, you know, you can hear us grinding away.
So 2.5 days to make an album. There's the album.
Yeah.
Well, you actually worked with Robbie Porter twice, because this one isn't the original Sparmac, but that's on Wizard. Yes, and Robbie Porter had already been a pop star in his day as well, hadn't he?
He had. He was a child prodigy in a way, because he played really good Hawaiian lap steel and had a series of like big hits with instrumentals when instrumentals used to be hits, you know. That doesn't happen that much anymore. But and then he could sing as well. Rob E.G.
55 Days in Peking.
And Whiplash was another one. And Si Senor. He had a bunch of hits, you know. And he was a good-looking guy. So he was always on the TV shows. And then he could sing as well. So he started to concentrate on that. But he left to go to America, and he started acting, and he was like in a few, you know, movies and stuff. And then he came back to Australia, so he was going to divide his time between LA and Australia, and he was looking for talent here, and he found us, and that we were the first album to come out on Sparmac. They'd had a few singles before that.
Was Eagle Rock the first song Daddy Cool recorded?
Well, no, we went into the studio and we just started recording things. I don't know, it might have been the first one. I remember my amp had blown up, so there was an amp in the studio, and I just used that. It was like I was unfamiliar with this amp, but it sounded quite good, so I just used that. You know, we're pretty laid back. We just go, "Oh, what do you got? You know, let's do it." And the studio, the original Armstrong studio, it was on Albert Road near the Albert Park Lake. It's not there anymore. It was just an old single terrace, and they'd gutted it down the middle. So they had a couple of rooms in the front where there was quite an industry going on of recording jingles and also, you know, rock and roll and pop songs. And they had a guy, Johnny Hawker, had an office there, do orchestrations and, you know, add things to get people in. They had this whole method going. So you walk in there and they had a drum booth all set up. You could get sounds very, very quickly. You didn't have to muck around, you know, because they had their method of how to do it. It was only on 8-track too. The album was done on 8-track, so you had to sort of bounce things down for vocal overdub, you know, group vocals and whatever. And to save tracks, the bass drum and the bass are on one track, which they don't have to do that anymore. You know, it's separate, but sounds quite good. So they were very good at what they did. Yeah, Roger Savage was the engineer, and you know, he's world famous now, does Hollywood movie soundtracks and all of that, you know. He was an English guy who brought his talents over to Australia.
This was 1971. We were still in the midst of AM radio. There was it was pre-Countdown, and yet you had a music video for Eagle Rock, which must have been very, very rare in its day.
Well, it was a kind of vanity project for us, because now I'd just like to point out that the band that I had before I went to England, the Party Machine, was where me and Mike Rudd sort of learned how to write songs. You know, I would write heaps of songs. Some of them were terrible and others were quite good. We just kept doing it, you know, and we played a lot of original material. When we broke up, and I went to England, Mike went, oh, what am I going to do? I better start a band. I got to make a living. And he started to write songs prolifically, right? Came up with I'll Be Gone. So 18 months after we'd split up, we had back-to-back #1 hits. Spectrum with I'll Be Gone, and me and Ross Hannaford with Eagle Rock. And that's 3 of the 4 members of the Party Machine. So the Party Machine was a very important part of all of that, and we spawned those 2 big national hits, Australian #1s. Well, a friend of ours, Chris LaFane, was a filmmaker as well, and he did the film clip for I'll Be Gone. So our stablemates and our mate, Mike Rudd, he had this film clip. So we said, we want one of those. Hey, Chris, what do you got? And Chris LaFane had been following Daddy Cool around, shooting live footage and just stuff of wherever we were. And he shot this live footage at my Ponga Pop Festival in South Australia, which was their first big outdoor festival, right? And there we are, bouncing around the stage and people going, yeah, and having a great time. Once again, we had not released a record at that stage. He took that good, vibey footage and we added a few other scenes. And for $300, we had the Eagle Rock film clip, which is still played today, it's like, but yeah, it was a vanity thing. And the penny didn't drop till later, when a few years later, when Countdown started and film clips became the big thing, we kind of went, oh, maybe that film clip had something to do with the record going to #1. It's like, because we were so hot, every station would play the Eagle Rock film clip, like all around the nation. Didn't matter where you were, Darwin, Queensland. That's what they used, because we weren't, we weren't in the town at the time, but they'd play that. But we didn't really, and think about it. And the record company had nothing to do with it. It was purely us, that instigated that.
What about the locations in that video clip? Now, it was shot around St Kilda and South Melbourne, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The Dolphin Cafe is the one I walk in, and then they're playing Eagle Rock on the jukebox. And there's these young girls there, in hot pants going, oh, look, it's the guy from Daddy Cool. And the other members are in there. That doesn't exist anymore. I think it's a shoe shop now. It's in Clarendon Street. But the other one, Aussie Burgers, which is opposite Luna Park, where the final scene, we're driving off in Wayne Duncan's beat up old FJ Holden. That's became McDonald's. So it's still a burger joint, but it's McDonald's now.
And then some live footage from Adelaide.
And live footage from the Maiponga Festival, yeah. And he went to the Melbourne Zoo and shot some eagles in the big aviary there. That's where the eagles are on the ground going like this. And the most question I ever get asked about, how did he get the eagles to dance to the Eagle Rock? It's like, you don't quite understand how film clips are made. You cut what the eagles are doing in time with the music, not the other way around.
The song's had a remarkable legacy, as you've mentioned, with Elton John and, being inspired to write Crocodile Rock from there. It's been issued on a stamp. It's been covered by the Wiggles. Was used in the movie Red Dog. Played at grand finals. I think even a school has used it as an anthem.
It's been used in lots of movies. I think that if Americans, they go, oh, there's an Australian movie. Oh, there's that song again. It's like, was in Wolf Creek, in the opening sequence from Wolf Creek to the Wiggles. That's what we've got, like that's how wide it goes, But the one that was a big surprise to me over the years was it became known that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers sort of formed around the fact that Mike Campbell and Tom Petty and Ben Montench, they were like all circling each other around about forming a group, and they bonded over Daddy Cool. It's like Tom Petty says, oh, I really like this album by this unknown Australian group, it got all of it. So Mike Campbell goes, yeah, I love that one too. So they were like, and if you go onto Tom Petty satellite radio, which is a big thing in the States, they play Come Back Again all the time. I think that's their favourite one, and Eagle Rock. And consequently, I get a nice stream of royalties now when I used to get nothing. Thank you, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, the surviving members, and Tom Petty Radio. I love it.
Now, coming up January 26 at the Melbourne Pavilion, you will be performing Mick Thomas's Roving Commission on that gig as well.
Yeah.
That's the Survival Day concert.
Yeah, Survival Day, Invasion Day. Over the years, I've played many Australia Day events because it's a big thing around Australia. You know, just about every council will put on some kind of event and have fireworks, and you know, I get paid very well for those. But I've thought I've as time has gone by, I made the decision a couple of years ago that, you know, things are kind of still quite serious as far as relations between Indigenous Australians and you know, the colonial ones, including myself, and you know, since colonisation. And I think it's important that to address those issues that I addressed in the song "Living in the Land of Oz." And so I made a decision. I'm not going to play at Australia Day events until they change the date. I'd love to celebrate Australia Day and have it more inclusive, but the fact that they put it deliberately on the 26th of January, which was the anniversary of 26th of January 1788, was when the first fleet left Botany Bay. They'd stopped there first, but it wasn't suitable, so they went into Port Jackson and Sydney Cove. They raised the flag and claimed that for England, and it became a colony, an English colony, and the results for Indigenous Australians are plain to see even today, and in the fact that they were dispossessed of countries that they had looked after and lived in for tens of thousands of years. So like, and then of course there became you know, bloody conflicts and all of that. So like, to me, it's a real red flag. It's a problem to have it on that date. Let's move the date. Let's change the date, as Midnight Oil say on their latest album. It's a movement, and change the date. You know, let's have Australia Day where we can all celebrate being Australians without that tainted date hanging over our head. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. And then a whole lot of shows coming up for the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, well, but getting back to Living in the Land of Oz, the show, I'm going to be playing that song, of course, and a few other songs leading in that direction that I've written over the years. But yeah, I'll be doing Mondo Rock and I'll be doing Daddy Cool songs, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We're up against stiff competition. There are a lot of Australia Day events going on. I hope someone comes along because we're going to have a good time. Yeah, but and then from that point on, you know, I'm playing around so far, mainly Victoria in January and February because of COVID restrictions and border. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's like walking on quicksand. You can book a gig and then it's like can evaporate because of new rules, you know. So like, but hoping to get into New South Wales pretty soon as well. I've got some gigs there down the track, you know.
Will you record new music at some stage in the future?
I will. Yeah, I got a couple of things in the works. I've got a big backlog of songs. I'm really in the mood to do that, and I've got a lot of good material. I think might surprise people when they hear it, and just got to get, you know, right core people in the studio to do it with, and get some time, and we'll have new stuff out pretty soon. I think first we might be releasing just a couple of single tracks or an EP, and then work on a whole album. But yeah, we're very eager to do that.
Well, it's always good to catch up with Ross Wilson. It's rare that I get to also talk to Ross Wilson's beard, so good to see you again, Beard.
Man. Because I'm planning on doing, of course, we can't reform Daddy Cool because Wayne Duncan, the bass player, and Ross Hanover, the lead guitarist, passed away close to each other in 2016. But I'm going to, you know, I'd like to celebrate our golden anniversary with probably something along the lines of Wilson Plays Cool or something like that. Because there was quite a few, when we did have our reunions, there's quite a few songs that we didn't play, some of the more demanding songs like Lovin' and FJ and things like that. So I'd like to revisit those ones as well as all the ones everybody knows. So it'd be kind of, we're working on the whole idea now. And Eagle Rock was #1 nationally for 10 weeks from the end of June through to the end of August, right? And then the moment that run fell off because the album came out at that time and the album continued on, that was #1 for 7 weeks. So there's like 3 or 4 months there in which I'd like to, you know, flag some gigs around Australia and, you know, hopefully a lot of people come along and see them, and we can, my beard will be a bit longer by then, and we can get out the foxtail and do the thing.
Hopefully at one point along that way we see the complete album being performed, Ross.
Well, nah.
Every song's a winner.
Every song's a winner, and I think we'll play all those songs, but I don't think we'll play them in the order of the album or anything like that, because there's too much other stuff that we'd like to mess around with. I might even play Sons of Vegetal Mother song, you know, and a Party Machine song in there, just to show how it all links up. You know, there's quite interesting stuff in there. So it'll be like a celebration of how we got there and what we ended up with as well.
Fantastic stuff. Ross, thanks for joining us here at Noise 11.